There's a stretch of water between Alaska and Russia that's just 51 miles wide. It's shallower than the English Channel. Two small islands sit right in the middle, splitting the distance. On paper, this should be one of the more straightforward underwater tunnels you could build. The Channel Tunnel between Britain and France cost $15 billion and took 6 years to complete, in a mild climate with major cities on both ends. A tunnel here would face minus 50-degree temperatures, shifting permafrost and complete darkness for months at a time. The nearest railroad is 500 miles away in Alaska. On the Russian side, it's 1,300 miles through wilderness. In October 2025, Kremlin investment envoy Kirill Dmitriev floated a Putin-Trump tunnel, claiming the tunnel itself could cost under $8 billion if new tunneling methods deliver on their promises, tagging Elon Musk's boring company in the post. The timing? Hours after a private phone call between Russian President Vladimir Putin and the US President Donald Trump. So what's changed? Has technology made the impossible affordable? Or is the $8 billion just for the tunnel, not the thousands of miles of railroad you'd need to reach it? This isn't a new idea. It's a 150-year obsession. In the mid-19th century, Colorado's first territorial governor proposed a rail link across the strait. By 1906, a consortium of American, French, and Russian investors had raised millions and established a corporation to build it, but Tsar Nicholas II withdrew support the following year. During World War II, the US Army Corps of Engineers surveyed a route, and Stalin later expressed interest to President Truman in connecting the rail networks. In 2007, Russia backed a $65 billion tunnel plan that never came to life. Every single attempt has died for the same reason. The economics don't work. Traditional underwater tunneling costs between $500 million and $1 billion per mile. At that rate, even a 70-mile tunnel will cost more than most countries spend on infrastructure in a decade. What makes this proposal different is the claim about technology. Russia is saying that new drilling methods, the kind being used in Las Vegas and Miami, can cut that cost by 90%. If that's true, it doesn't just make this tunnel possible, it makes dozens of impossible projects suddenly feasible. The question isn't whether you can drill a hole under the Bering Strait. The question is whether you can do it cheaply enough to justify building thousands of miles of railroad through permafrost to reach it. So let's start with where. The Bering Strait sits between Alaska and Russia's Chukotka Peninsula, just 51 miles at its narrowest point. In the middle, two islands. Big Diomede on the Russian side, Little Diomede on the American side, separated by only 2.4 miles. You can literally see Russia from Alaska. Let's be clear, the Bering Strait isn't just remote, it is alien. Surprisingly, the water itself isn't the main problem. It's shallow, only 30 to 50 meters deep. That's shallower than the English Channel. The geography even gives us a stepping stone, the Diomede Islands. But everything you'd need to build a tunnel here doesn't exist. Power generation for massive boring machines, at least 25 megawatts each, with no electrical grid for thousands of miles. Housing for thousands of workers in a place where supply runs happen by ice-breaking ships. Materials that have to be flown or shipped in during the few months when the sea isn't frozen solid. And there's no rescue infrastructure. If something goes wrong 35 miles into a tunnel, the nearest hospital is in Nome, Alaska, 120 miles away by helicopter. The nearest major city is Anchorage, over 500 miles. In 2014, China proposed a high-speed rail connection with a 200-kilometer tunnel. It never moved past the proposal stage, not because the engineering was impossible, but because the logistics of getting workers, materials, and equipment to the site were prohibitively expensive. Extreme tunneling isn't theoretical, it has been done. Japan's Saikan Tunnel connects two islands through 54 kilometers of seismically active seafloor, nearly as long as the Bering Strait proposal. It sits 240 meters below sea level in an earthquake zone. Construction took 17 years and cost $7 billion. It opened in 1988 and carries 50 trains per day through one of the most tectonically unstable regions on Earth. Switzerland's Gotthard Base Tunnel runs 57 kilometers through the Alps, the longest railway tunnel in the world. Engineers drilled through rock reaching 45 degrees Celsius, 2,300 meters below the surface. It took 17 years, cost $12 billion, and required 4 massive boring machines operating simultaneously. 9 workers died during construction. It opened in 2016. Turkey's Marmara Tunnel crosses the Bosphorus Strait in Istanbul, 13.6 kilometers through another active seismic zone, just 10 miles from the North Anatolian Fault. The immersed tube sections were placed 60 meters below sea level and engineered to flex during earthquakes up to a magnitude 7.5. It took 9 years and cost nearly $9 billion. It's been operating since 2013, carrying over 1 million passengers per day. These aren't hypothetical projects. They're functioning infrastructure in conditions that engineers once considered impossible: underwater, seismic zones, extreme depth, extreme heat. The technology to tunnel through hostile environments exists. The question is whether the Bering Strait is just another extreme tunnel, or whether it's in a different category entirely. So, how would you actually build this? The standard method uses tunnel boring machines, TBMs. These are massive drills, 28 to 30 feet in diameter, that grind through rock and install concrete ring segments as they go. It's a stop-and-start process. Bore a few feet, stop, install a support ring, brace against it, bore again. On a good day, you might advance 50 to 100 feet. The machines themselves cost hundreds of millions of dollars and require enormous staging areas. This is how the Channel Tunnel was built. It's slow, expensive, and proven. Boring Company's approach is radically different. They use smaller machines, 12 to 14 feet in diameter instead of 28. That alone cuts the volume of rock you need to remove by 75%. The machines install support rings while they're still drilling, continuous operation, no stopping. And instead of massive excavation pits at each end, they use a technique called porpoising. The machine launches from the surface, dives down, and surfaces at the exit. In Las Vegas, this method worked spectacularly. They built 1.7 miles of tunnel for about $47 million, roughly $10 to $12 million per mile. That's less than 2% of what traditional tunneling costs. Now let's simulate what happens when you try that same approach in the Bering Strait. First problem, you're not boring through dry desert rock at 40 degrees. You're boring through frozen seafloor at minus 50 degrees. The rock is bound together by ice. Traditional cutting heads would seize up. You'd need specialized equipment that doesn't exist yet. Second problem, power. These boring machines need 25 megawatts continuously. In Vegas, you plug into the grid. Here, you'd need to build a dedicated power plant just to run the drill. And it has to work in Arctic conditions where diesel fuel gels and equipment fails constantly. Third problem, the tunnel diameter. Boring Company's 12-foot tunnels work for cars. Rail freight needs at least 20 feet of clearance, more for double-stacked containers. That means you're back to building large diameter tunnels, which eliminates most of the cost savings. Fourth problem, you need at least 2 tunnels, one for each direction, plus a service tunnel for emergency access. That's 3 simultaneous boring operations in the Arctic, not one quick dig through Nevada sand. Fifth problem, ventilation. In Vegas, your tunnel is 1.7 miles long. You can push air through with fans. At 70 miles, you'd need ventilation shafts every few miles. But you can't drill a shaft up into the middle of the ocean. The ice pack would shear it off in the first winter storm. Without ventilation, workers can't breathe. The tunnel can't operate. Here's what Russia's $8 billion assumes: that you can take technology proven in a 1.7-mile urban tunnel in perfect conditions and scale it to a 70-mile underwater Arctic tunnel with zero adaptation costs. That the boring machines work just as well in permafrost. That you can somehow ventilate without shafts. That rail clearances don't matter. What about a bridge instead of a tunnel, you may ask? Bridge proposals go back at least to Joseph Strauss's 1892 thesis, and later Peace Bridge concepts were promoted by engineer T.Y. Lin. For comparison, the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge is a 55-kilometer sea crossing that cost about $18.8 billion and took roughly a decade from groundbreaking to opening. Bering Strait is about 82 kilometers at its narrowest, and the Diomede Islands could split a crossing into shorter spans. But bridges face a brutal ice problem. Sources commonly cite ice flows up to 1.8 meters thick and potential pier loads on the order of approximately 44 meganewtons. Confederation Bridge-style ice-breaking cones can reduce ice loads, but the scale and variability of sea ice in the Bering region would make pier design and maintenance a defining challenge. But let's suspend disbelief one last time. Let's say Trump and Putin sign the deal. Musk drills the holes and the trains start running. What changes for the general public, for you and me? The pitch is that this will revolutionize global trade. But think about it as a customer. Right now, if you want to ship a container from Shanghai to Seattle, it goes on a ship. It takes around 2 to 3 weeks, and roughly, in normal market conditions, costs between $1,500 to $3,000 per TEU. If you send that same container by rail through this tunnel, it has to travel through Siberia, under the strait, across Alaska, and down through Canada. Rail typically costs significantly more than sea freight, while only making sense when it saves time. And for passengers? Are you going to sit on a train for days or even weeks to get to London when you can fly there in 10 hours? This tunnel doesn't solve a transportation problem. The ships are doing fine. The planes are doing fine. The only thing this tunnel solves is a symbolism problem. It's a vanity project. It's about being the leader who connected the world. You can tunnel under the ocean or build over it, but you cannot tunnel through the reality that nobody needs this connection badly enough to pay for it. Until there is a reason to go there, the Bering Strait will remain exactly what it has always been, the beautiful, frozen end of the line. So you tell us, should this connection be built, or should it be left in fantasy and engineering theses? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Megabuilds for more such videos. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.